traveling. So the brisket has essentially two muscles. We have a muscle that looks like this. It's called the flat. And you can see the pointy part here, the pointy part. That's called the point. So when you go to Texas and you order brisket from a restaurant, the meat cutter is going to ask you, sir and ma'am, would you like the fatty or the lean? So that's the fatty, which is the point muscle. The lean is this flat muscle here. They both taste different, so I'm going to serve you guys some brisket momentarily so you can taste the difference between the point and the flat. I prefer the point. The point has a very nice mouthfeel, it's very nice texture. But a lot of people also like the flat because it's called the lean. It's not so fatty. People who don't like so much fat, this portion is tastier for them. You notice the brisket has a lot of fat on it and covered. So if I cook the brisket this way and I apply the seasoning on it, the seasoning will fall on the fat. When I cook it, all the fat will melt off. So all the seasoning will fall off. So the step we do is we put our hand underneath the brisket so that it makes a little shape, and then we can trim off this fascia, or we call it also the silver skin because there's a skin underneath that is kind of silver. And what I'm doing is I'm trimming off the silver skin, fat, and the fascia from this side of the brisket so I can expose the protein. When I put my seasoning on it, the protein is going to be able to adhere to the meat and not fall off when I cook it. So just trimming off some of the excess fat. And you don't have to trim all of it off, but if you can get a few of the thick pieces of fat, like for example, this is a very thick part here, trim it off like so. Trim off a little bit here. And if you look at the shape of the brisket, there are some parts that are very, very thin. So the thin parts will burn. So what you want to do is when you cook a brisket, you want to really trim it so that some of the thin parts don't have, are not too thin, so the brisket will not burn. So, and this at least one side, flip it over. You notice this brisket has this piece here. This piece will not cook really well, so I recommend you trim this piece off, and you can make pot roast or beef stew out of this piece here. So keep it here, and trim off some of the excess fat on this side. Around the corners a little bit, and I try to make sure that the angle by which I trim the brisket on the edge is about 30 degrees, so that the airflow that flows over the brisket will not burn the edges. So I'm a competitor. I won First Place USA in brisket. These are the details that I go through to ensure that the edges of my brisket, when I cook it, don't end up burning and become too crispy. So finish trimming here. Show you guys how we season it. So this brisket is ready to go. Shot of that here. That's how you trim it. And it has a meat side and a fat side. This side, this is the fat side. And this is you can cook the brisket either this way or you can cook it this way. On this particular Monolith ceramic cooker, I prefer to have the fat at the bottom because the fat protects the meat from the fire, since my fire is at the bottom. But I always recommend you cook it both ways to see which one works best in your particular condition. So any questions on this? Cool. Let me go ahead and show you how to season this. So we use a seasoning. You can season this with salt and pepper, that's great, but I am a competitor, so I made some seasonings. So I'm using my beef rub. So besides salt and pepper in this rub, I have other products like paprika, chili powder. I also have certain umami ingredients such as shiitake mushrooms. I have powdered Worcestershire. I have a little bit of fruit acid in here. I also have a little bit of celery seed. So it gives a great flavor, and it's done really well for me. A lot of competitors in the USA use my product to win competition. So when you compete in a contest, you can sometimes take home a $10,000 check with the product that you turn in. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply the product on. First thing you wanna do is you wanna shake the rub to loosen it, and you wanna start up about maybe a foot away. The reason you start high is so that you don't end up applying it unevenly. So if you look at what I'm doing here, I'm applying up here. So you apply one layer and you stop once the meat is okay, and then you pat it down gently with your hand like that. So you never rub a rub, even though it's called a rub. You always apply a rub evenly. You gently pat it down, and because this is a thick cut of meat, I'm going to go with 2 layers. One more layer coming on, like so. same exact amount as before. So I stop, so it's 2 layers. So that's kind of how I design my product to apply properly so that you get the right amount of flavor, a right amount of saltiness. So with that, I'm just going to finish up the rest of the meat here. You guys, how we do that. So that's 1 layer. And I'm going to pat it down. And then start the second layer, exactly the same as before. And that would be perfect. The rub should stay on for about 4 hours. That way it gives the time for the salt to penetrate the meat. So in competitions, I do this 4 hours before I'm going to cook it. For home use, you can just cook it right away. But if you let it sit a little bit longer, there's a lot more flavor. For those of you who want to do this overnight because it's easier, just put a little bit less rub and it should be absolutely perfect. So that's how we season and cook a brisket. We're going to put it into a smoker or a grill. We're going to cook this at about 160 degrees for about 4 or 5 hours until this piece of meat develops a nice crust. And then we just wrap it in foil. We continue to cook it until it becomes probe tender. So it's pretty simple to cook, not really hard. The key is to understand the process and then to try to use a good product that will give your meat great flavor. Okay? Right. So I'm gonna set this aside. Show you guys what we do next. So I'm going to pick up a hot brisket now. This is the meat prepared previously. So this is about 6 hours later, 6 to 7 hours later. And it's wrapped in foil for the reasons I mentioned earlier. So since I'm in Germany, I guess everyone here likes sausage. So I'll show you how we make sauce and make a blend for the sauce. So these are Nürnberg sausage. Nürnberger sausages, and I just warm them up. When I cook barbecue, I like to serve my barbecue with the sauce. So I'll show you how the sauce works. I have different kinds of sauces, and I follow the formula of something sweet, something tangy, something hot in my original recipe. So on this particular sauce, particular sausage, I'm going to show you how I would blend it. So I'm going to add 1 part of my original sauce. So, and I'm going to go maybe another half of sweet. I'm going to go just a little bit of hot, kind of warm up the flavors. And I'm going to add a little bit of tanginess to it. Now the sauces are here. If you want to try them, you can try them there. Use a clean bamboo skewer here. This is the tangy, this is the hot, this is sweet, and this is the original. So you're going to try the sauce. So we're going to mix this up. Johanna's going to help serve it. We have a tongue for it. Yeah. Mix it up. So while she serves you the sausage, I'm going to cut up the brisket that you guys try.
Make sausage and brisket in one.
Yeah, we're going to mix you kind of a combo platter. Mix you some sausage and brisket. Okay, now give me a minute here. I'll cut up the brisket. Sure. Turning on. All right, so here's how the brisket looks like. So you can tell it's a good brisket. You can see, if you want to do an Instagram shot right now, you can see how the brisket jiggles when I shake it. See that? So that's how you tell the brisket is super tender. When you can touch it, it kind of jiggles. You gonna show you guys how it looks like. Slice off a little bit of the burnt end. The burnt end is the fatty part of the brisket. Since you're close to me, you can do a taste test and tell everybody whether it's okay. How about you too, sir? Okay? Very tender, saltiness okay? Okay, alright. So I'm not sure about the level of salt in Germany, but in America, everything's too salty. So when I cook brisket, I always tell myself, don't overdo it. This is Germany, so we'll let you guys try this. So I'm going to take a slice from the left. See how it looks like. I'll take a slice from the right. And tell you guys which one looks better. So when you pick up a brisket, it should be tender, but not falling off the bone. So you can see I'm draping it like a drape like that. So that's how a brisket should have the tenderness. Super tender, but not tender enough that it falls apart. So you can see when I pull it, right? You see closely, when I pull it, you can see it's like an accordion. See that? You see the accordion? It splits apart, so you should pull perfectly. So that is perfectly tender brisket, right? So I'm gonna let my 2 cents.